Thank you, Aaron, Ms. Bethany. Let's take our Bibles, please, to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 1 tonight. I couldn't figure out a good title for the message this evening. And anyways, I'll just give you the premise of it, and you guys can title it whatever you want. And how's that sound? You guys write the message. But so the premise is the life of Daniel, that he succeeded in life, and he did so in certain ways. There's people that I enjoy. I'll see what they have done. And I want to learn from them. And for instance, last year we had Ron Hahn from Marion came and he did a family conference. They had, I don't know, like 45 children or something like that. How many kids though? 9? Same thing, right? But anyways, when it came to the number of children, all of them are serving the Lord. All of them, without exception. I want to know, what did you do? I really want to know. And that's not that children don't have their own free will and all that, but I want to learn from them. And so I look at somebody like Daniel in the Bible, and I see Daniel at the end of the book of Daniel, and you see, what did you do? What is it that sets you up specifically for success? For one thing, we have to remove in our mind the idea of success being what the world establishes as success, right? If we look at success in the world, you name it. What are the things that the world's looking for as far as successful? What are some of those things? Money. That's how many of you already had that answer? You have money. All right, that's what it was. What are some of the other things the world counts successful? Looking good. Yes, it's nothing better than filling a casket with a beautiful person in it. So, all right, Jeremiah. Stuff. Yeah, possessions. Big house. There we go. So you're lodging. Position. So status in life. Yeah. Nice car. Yes. All right. Being remembered. That's like the book of Ecclesiastes. That's Solomon's goal. Fame. Was that fame? Fame, yeah. So to be known.
A nice family.
A nice, yeah. There we go. Something even like good thing. Peace. Is peace a good thing to pursue? And yeah, that is a good thing. People want that calm, stability. How about problem-free life? that's good. Health. Sometimes that's a goal. We have health. But anyways, the scriptures. We see the life of Daniel. And when you go through his life, it's not that life is easy. Sometimes we assume that if we follow biblical patterns, everything's just going to go great, and that is not the success that we find within the scriptures. So we're looking at the life of Daniel. We realize Daniel succeeds in life because of what he pursued, and we see that, for instance, in the book of Hebrews, chapter number 11, you look at individuals who had these lives of faith. Abraham's goal was not to build a city, but it's to get that which God had promised him personally. He's seeking that, not made with hands. He's talking about his eternal inheritance, what God has for him. And so in essence, we are living for the things which are above. That's what the Bible's addressing. And anyways, what this means is our mindset cannot be the last date on your tombstone. So you have your birth date and then you have your end date. The goal is not that end date. I'm not against the message. I've heard the message about the dash. Anybody heard that kind of message before? I'm not against the message. And the idea is you have the date of birth and you have your date of your death, and your life is that dash in between. But we don't live for that dash, really, do we? I mean, it sounds good in a message, and you can make a good case. I understand that. But the concept, according to the book of Ecclesiastes, is you're not living for life under the sun, which is what that dash is. Now, what we're looking is an eternal existence, what God has for us, and the way we're going to serve him forever. And so if we only look, what am I going to accomplish in this life, we're going to keep very focused on the temporal good and bad. Good circumstances, hey, I got a pay raise at work, good circumstance. The bad, but now, I hurt my leg, and now life's falling apart or whatever. And so the good and the bad is not good when we're looking only on this life. So we're looking eternally. We see that with Daniel. And anyways, when we get started here, Daniel chapter number 1, we're going to look at several principles. My goal is to be done just past 8 o'clock. That's the goal. So it's 7:32, and so we'll just be done when I feel like we can be done. Okay. So or when you leave. So Daniel chapter number 1. Looking here, we see the storyline. I'm going to trust this is Wednesday night. Most of you know the story of Daniel with some decency. If you don't know it, you can get to know it pretty well just by reading the book of Daniel. It's very much written in story format, at least up until chapter number 6 or so. Chapter 7 and 8 as well. But anyways, in chapter number 1, it tells us the format that what's happened is Israel as a whole. The children of Israel divided into two kingdoms. Northern kingdom's fallen some time before this, but now the southern kingdom has been invaded. It's a series, several invasions, but Nebuchadnezzar comes in and he takes the people out of Israel. And specifically, we're talking about the land of Israel, the nation of Judah is who he invades. So anyways, this is what happens. Verse number 1 talks about the king that's there in Jerusalem. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, into Jerusalem and besieged it. So just to stop there, I can't tell you how many times I've read verse number 1 and just like, well, let me get to the good stuff. Verse number 1 is a big verse because it sets for us the tone of it. It sets for us what it's like and what's going on. We are so far removed from war. Like back January 1st, there was a couple of those things. We had the thing take place in New Orleans, and we had the car bomb that took place over at Trump Tower in Las Vegas, and it was just a whirlwind, just a frenzy. People are shutting stuff down. Stores didn't want to open. People are not going to go to some of the bowl games for football because of things that they thought might be happening. There's a lot of questions now about the inauguration that's going to be taking place. All sorts of fears because of 2 attacks in 2 places, right? And anyways, with that, we really have it good compared to a lot of countries. When I was in South America, I lived there until I was almost 5 years old. And anyways, right after that, I came to live back in the United States. I was born here, but I came back to live in the United States. And while I was back here, something started that same year where this group, which has a cool name, but a really terrible group, it's called Shining Path. Now, if you have to choose a terrorist group to be a part of, I guess that's kind of a nice name. But the point is that they were really bad. They caused a lot of harm when they were down there, and they would blow stuff up. And they would go and blow up power plants and all sorts of things, and they would just wreak havoc everywhere. So there's these fears. When you go on a bus, is this bus going to blow up? All right, when you go to a store, what if they're making a point there to make a big point against this store, or it's close to a certain government facility, and you have to do your registrations and whatnot, but what if they decide to bomb it then? And that was one of the issues. And so for them, you're constantly seeing the fear of you don't know what's going to happen. Now for Daniel, there is going to be during this time where there's an invasion, but it wasn't their first one. They had one not too long previous before this and lost a lot of stuff, but Nebuchadnezzar kind of let a lot of people stay, just took a lot of their wealth. This time he comes in again, and we don't know what's going to happen. There's fear. Now, Daniel, we don't know if his parents were alive at this point. We'll go with the assumption that they were. But Daniel's parents now, he's definitely removed from him. Whether or not they died here or maybe they were left there, he just didn't get to see them. But the point is he's going to be taken from home. There's an invasion. Your nerves are rattled. You don't know what's going on. They're being taken far away. They're going to make this 900-mile trip over to Babylon. And they're doing so. They're not taking transports. They're not taking trains. They're not flying. They are walking. And the method of that walking was probably quite brutal. So they're being taken away. And it's with this large cluster. Basically, anybody with the possibility of future leadership there in Jerusalem has been removed. All the young people. Your best and brightest, which this is not necessarily only the best and brightest, but a varying group from that, would be taken out of Jerusalem. And what's going to happen? Are they going to come back? Are they going to return? They don't know. They don't know. But what they've done, though, is they have been part of a system that had a temple. They offered sacrifices to God. They had a system. They had priests. They had a law. They had people that interpreted the scriptures. They had all the stuff, but it wasn't playing out in the truth of what they had. To explain it, let's put it in modern day terms. People today know about Christianity. They know about Jesus. They know about the death, the burial, the resurrection. They know about all these things. They know about our call to holiness. The fact that Ephesians chapter number 1 and 2 and 3, they all talk about the fact that our salvation, it wasn't just so we could earn it by the works. We received it and then called unto good works. So this is what we have in Jesus. So you have all these pieces, and yet with that, we know that our purpose as Christians is to do the works that God wants us to do. And then we don't. And then the world sees it. There is and this is shameful, but a minister of sorts that we weren't connected with them, but we're in circles of friends that this week got caught up into some terrible stuff. Found out, I should say. And anyways, that's harsh. That's heartbreaking. You see the devastation that takes place, and it's not an isolated thing, is it? That people fall into sin, they fall. Talk about people of leadership, and this guy was a singer. But anyways, with these types of things, you see these things that are falling apart, and you think, well, what's going on here? This guy knows the redemption of Jesus Christ. This guy knows about the power of the resurrection. This guy knows that stuff and does these absolutely awful things. How is this possible? So the police department from that city where he was in posted something on Facebook, and within one day had nearly 1,000 comments. And all of them were just comments about, I can't, this guy is hiding under the mask of Christianity, and he's doing all this stuff, and anyways, and they're just attacking. And you know what they're attacking? They're not necessarily attacking him as much as Christianity as a whole. And so what I'm telling you is that it does make more sense what's happening in the life of Daniel than we think, because there in Jerusalem, they had all the process. They knew what they were supposed to do. They knew the functions, they knew the sacrifice, they knew the statements, they knew what they were supposed to say, they knew scriptures, they knew these things, and yet the way it's being lived day to day doesn't seem to be matching up with what's taking place in the teaching of the temple. And so with that, we could be very comfortable to just kind of be okay with the way culture works or church works or whatever. But what he's given us is that there is a difference that can be made, and what happens is when you see the culture of the Bible and you see the culture of Christianity, you can get very comfortable within that in the sense that you can find a place of community. It's kind of nice. You show up and you make friends and you get to do activities. That video Sunday, I appreciate my wife made that for us Sunday. You know what was exciting to me? Like, there's two things. One is anxiety if we did a lot of stuff. And we got to do it again, but we don't have to. We're going to slow down a little bit this year. But we did a lot of stuff, and we had fun. We had a lot of fun. We did a lot of fun things. And I got to be at almost all of those events, and it's fun. It's fun to have these friendships and the cookouts and the evangelistic efforts together and the service. I think that's great. But we can get comfortable with that, and we kind of just put it in those places. We're Christian at church. We're Christian when we're doing stuff. We're Christian when we're asked to pray at Thanksgiving dinner. Whatever it is. But then at other times, there's a disconnect. And Daniel's seeing that. And I want to remind you, Daniel is young. Daniel's young. The way he's going to be spoken of in this is interesting. Look down, if you will. Verse number 2 is that they're taken out, not just the people, but also the stuff that was in the temple. Verse number 3, and the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding, science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans. These are educated people. Now, it uses the word children. When you see that back in verse number 3, children of Israel, they could literally mean they're just the children of Israel. That could be adults or whatever. But when it mentions it in verse number 4, that word's referencing specifically very young people. This guy was likely an older child or a young teenager when he's first taken from Babylon. Now, to put in perspective, Gabe, how old are you? You're 12? 12 years old. All right, so 12 years old. So somebody Gabe's age, taken out from Jerusalem. It could have been a little bit older, a couple of years older. But anyways, we got Reuben back there, and Reuben, you're 15 years old. All right, so most people just like pin 15 years old with Daniel. We see that because of some things later on in the book. But these guys, all right, when you see what's going on around you, it's very easy. Let's just not make waves. Let's just go ahead and get through life. Life is hard enough. Let's just go ahead and get to the end of this year. That would be the goal. But this is what's happening here. So this is all intro. The points will go very quickly. So when he's removed from that, when he goes somewhere else, what does he do to succeed? Let's look at it a couple points here. The very first one is that he establishes his values. He establishes his values. 2 Peter chapter 1, the Bible talks about add to your faith virtue. People frequently confuse that principle, the idea of virtue. People suggest that you establish virtue so you can establish your faith, but he makes it very clear your faith, and what he talks about is those exceeding great precious promises that we have in Jesus Christ, what we have in eternal life, what we have in what he's bought for us in his blood, what we have in what he's bought for us in his in giving to us that salvation that we receive by faith. That's the foundation of faith. He says, add to your faith virtue. And for Daniel, he shows up to this new place, and they're given a challenge. I'm not going to read all the text because we don't have time, but they're told, go eat this food. We're going to feed you this food. We want you to be strong. We want you to be educated. We want you to be the best, cream of the crop, to go serve the king. And anyways, Daniel says no. Daniel says no. Specifically because it would defile him to eat the food. Now, some people say, well, we don't really know that the food is bad, but look at verse number 8. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. So here's the rule. Daniel says, I cannot cross that line. And so Daniel, we don't know, again, his age. We know he's young, and we know he's going to live for quite a while, at least 70 plus years there in Babylon. But in the meantime, he says that there are certain things I cannot cross the line. So the Bible said he had purposed himself, but Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not. So the idea of purposing is, at this point, he made a decision. Now, he makes a decision that he cannot cross a line. He said that there's values I cannot change. Now, why does he establish that? Think about it. It's really easy to be a good Christian when you're around a lot of good Christians, isn't it? I love camp. I love our camp ministry. I enjoy being down there. And decisions are being made constantly. We're going to serve Jesus. We're dedicating our lives to him. We're going to sacrifice for him. And it's really easy at camp. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody wakes up. They do their devotions, and they go to church, a church service in the morning, and they eat, and they start with prayer, and then they have activities, and they have counselors talking to them, and it's constantly good. But then, when it's hard is when you leave camp. And I've been in church services where in the moment of that church service, I will never, ever again sin. It won't ever happen. I'm just so convinced of it by that message. There it is. But then you're challenged by it. I remember having a message about judgment. I mean, it's like not about the unjust judgment that you have against people. And then somebody asked a question. It was in a class, and the guy asked the dumbest question. I'm like, what? Oh, I just see what I just did there. And so, anyways, and it was just that quick, right? As soon as you're challenged by it. Daniel has gone from where he was to a place that was uncomfortable with the challenge, with the turmoil. If there's anybody that had an excuse to back off, it's Daniel. He's not even in the same place. He's gone elsewhere. In fact, we've done this. We've done this for years, and look how it's turned out. Maybe Daniel was a good follower of God there in Jerusalem. He was doing right. But as a kid, what was the options? We don't know much about him then. But when he got to that point, we know this. At that moment, he purposed in his heart. Now, the idea of purposing in his heart is, yes, we can make a point that he may have previously made that decision. But the point of the decision is at the moment where it matters. As a kid, I remember telling my mom that there would be certain things I would never do. Anybody have those? We have those things. I won't say what they all are. My kids are right here. And so we'll never do these certain things. When you get older, you do them. Well, as a kid, nobody's offered me to do those things. So it's different. When it's right there in front of you, it's different, right? And so when it comes to this, there's purpose. And so here's what matters. 2024, you had failures. Every single one of you. Don't minimize that. Like, you know what, I'll just get better. Elevate that. Escalate the concept of those things that I failed on, I have to give an account to Jesus for. So don't be like, well, I'll just get better. I'll sharpen myself up. No, I'm going to stand before Christ. And when I stand before Christ, this is what I did. Here's the reality of it. Confronted with the truth. Here's what I actually did. Elevate those failures to understand the gravity of them. But then the other part in 2025, purpose. Purpose in your heart. The idea of establishing that there are certain, you do not cross the lines. God speaks of this in great severity here in regards to what we ought to be doing, that we need to then purpose, value, to have certain values in our lives that we do not cross. Now, I would hope for us that this would be a successful year in regards to our values, our Christian character. Secondly, and I told you these points will be a little faster. Secondly, have courage. Have courage. Go to chapter 3, if you will. Chapter 3. Took me more pages than I thought it would be over here. All right. So this next part, and I would love to have a conversation with you guys about it, but Daniel's not mentioned here in this next chapter. But anyways, that's not the point. So we have his buddies, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they are in places of authority now at this point. They have shined in their excellence and in what they've been given opportunities for. And so all these rulers, all these people, whatever position of authority you had, they're all brought to this place and said, hey, when this image that's before you, the music is played, everybody must fall down and worship. Look at verse 6. And whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Question for you. At verse number 6, if all of us were in a room of 1,000 people, so all of us here, plus add, however more people it would make for 1,000 people, and somebody stood up front there. Sorry, President right now is Joe Biden. He's like, all right. President Biden says, all right, everybody, I've set up my passing. I'm about to leave office here, and so this new image I have made of myself, the new presidential painting of Joe Biden, the moment the music plays, and it's probably bad music, but regardless, it's the moment that music plays, all of you must fall down and worship. Now, for me, I'd be thinking, nope, no way. But I would think, well, for sure, I'll have at least these people aren't going to bow. You think that maybe crossed the minds of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Whosoever falleth not. Of course, all of us that came over from Jerusalem, we're not going to bow to this. I mean, yeah, they ate the food. They defiled themselves. We didn't. But you know what? This is too far. They're not going to bow. So in verse number 6, whoso falleth not down and worshipeth. Of course, there's going to be a bunch of us. What's he going to do? Throw all of us into the burning fiery furnace? Well, what happens in verse number 7? Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. I wonder, when they're standing there, is there a point where they look around like, hey, what do you do? And it's just the three of them. Like, surely there would be a couple more. By the way, if you're standing, you're going to get noticed. That's going to be how it's going to work. When I say courage, the idea here is we need to take a stand. There are going to be challenges that say, well, you know what, everybody else is, but we're not going to. And there will be a lot of changes, a lot of people backing off on things. A very popular thing right now amongst a lot of preachers, in which I'm not even sure I'm part of these conversations. But anyways, has to do with the cancellation of services. So I start canceling services. Can I be honest with you? It's a lot easier on our schedule. It really is. On Sunday night, I didn't know what to do. We're there Sunday night, and like I should be somewhere right now, and I'm not. I'm home. And anyways, but I wonder, like, what do you do if there's only one service a week? Anything you want, I think, has the answer. But the point is that when it comes, we just start scaling those back. And I get it that people make changes. I'm not saying every church that's moving things around is doing it sinfully or wickedly. But there's certain things that we decide. We're gonna keep doing. We're gonna keep taking a stand on. We're gonna keep doing what's right. Social pressures continue to mount. I know a lot of people are excited about the inauguration of President Trump coming up on the 20th. But one of the things that concerns me is that while there are successes on some fiscal aspects of what he's doing, and there's a point where people love America more. I mean, people are excited about that kind of, and I love our country, and people are excited about some things like men and women, like being men and women, and you realize, like, that was not, we're talking about below zero problems when we can't even figure out what men, that's not even a conversation. We were like, we're succeeding, men are men and women are women. That's status quo. That's how life should work. Anything besides that's very messed up. But anyway, so people were like, hey, we're succeeding, we're winning, we're having victory. But you know what's happened, though? Even in the conservative side of politics, I want to remind you that's politics and not church. When it comes to politics, care for moral things has just plummeted. From both sides, there's times that I can't let my kids listen to our politicians speak because I know they'll be cussing in their political sermons, right? So we've let morality slide, and you know what? A lot of Christians are like, you know, it's okay because this is kind of how culture have shifted, and it's okay now. It's not bad. Listen, we take a stand and say, no, no, no. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if every person bows. We're not doing it. We don't change who we are as Christians. We take a stand. We won't bend. And so we need to do so. We need to make a decision that we're going to stand the way we are supposed to. Go to chapter 6. We'll get the rest from chapter 6 here, I think, unless we got time for chapter number 9 as well. But anyways, chapter number 6, a couple things. Verse number 3, then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. The king says, you know what? That guy, Daniel. Now, this is, I love the story because Darius or Darius? 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 Okay, Darius it is. So Darius, King Darius is not Jewish, right? So he is not like, oh yeah, my brother and the Jews. Not like that. He's not Babylonian. So he's not going to take one of the Babylonian positions and be like, well, I have obvious preference for them. He's coming in as a Mede, part of the Medo-Persian Empire, and of all the people that he brings along with him, he says, that guy, Daniel, there's an excellent spirit in him. And I want him in charge over this whole realm. Well, that makes people very jealous, because they should. I mean, that's like, what are you talking about? We've been right here, Nick, with you, and haven't we proven ourselves? Then you promised us this. Haven't we named our children after you? We've done all these things, right? But in verse number 3, Daniel's excellent spirit was that it gave him opportunity. This is a small point, but one big point that I should mention here is that as Christians, there ought to be an excellence about the way we do things. Excellence. We are so okay with just getting by. Let me encourage you to do everything excellent. That means at your work, you be excellent. Listen, it's not for the purpose of pushing anybody down, but for the purpose that you represent Jesus. All right, I know I'm a saved individual. Jesus has bought me. I trust him in the gospel. At work, I want to show that I'm a follower of Jesus. I'll be the hardest worker. I'll be the most honest worker. I'll be the most punctual worker. I'll be the most diligent worker. I will do this excellently. Every ministry that we're involved in, we do it excellently. The donation baskets at churches are filled with junk. And what I mean by that is people are like, oh, you know what? This thing doesn't work anymore. Would the church like to have it? we get that question frequently. The answer is no, by the way. We don't want it. We're going to do the same thing you are, which is throw it away. So the idea of the junk, it's we'll give our best for whatever we're doing, but the rest we'll give to the church. And we sometimes serve the Lord with that. We'll give him the rest. We give him with an excellent spirit. For him, we see this, that he had an excellent spirit. Let's do all things in excellence. By the way, it's an excellent spirit, which means not just that the end product, but literally in the way in which he did it. Again, we're going quickly here. Look at verse number 4. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasions against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. It's this next part. So we talk about his values, the courage, integrity. I'm sorry, the excellence, and then fourthly, integrity. As Christians, as followers of Christ, let us be with integrity, full integrity. There was no crack in the character of Daniel. You couldn't look at Daniel like, you know what? I mean, I see what you're saying, but what about integrity? They had to search and search and search. What would happen if people had a chance to search you out? Say, okay, all right, well, I see what he's saying, but what if I had a chance to check out your online presence? Or what if I had a chance to check out your activities in the week, or where you're spending your money, or the way you're talking to your wife, or the way that you're treating your children, or the way that you treat your neighbors? Whatever you're doing, is this with integrity? Are you mostly good about everything except, listen, there should not be any space for us to allow certain things to creep in that are affecting our testimony for Christ. The way we see this is in the book of Ephesians, neither give place to the devil. Nowhere. We have full integrity in the way we do things. We tend to be okay in certain areas. As teenagers, we tend to think, well, you know what? I don't have the full responsibility as an adult. I'm entitled to whatever, slothfulness or cheating or whatever it may be. As a young adult, we think, well, we're not fully established in our careers, in our career choices. We don't have to make solid choices. We can live for ourselves, and it's right now about social times. As middle-aged adults, we tend to get to the point where we realize, some of those things of the excitement of the younger is not as good. I need to hibernate. I need to start saving. I need to start working extra, and we neglect the things of the Lord. As older people, we will tend to get grouchy, and we think, well, that's okay, because that's just, we've earned it. Whatever it may be, let's be full of integrity. Look at verse number 10. Verse number 10, so there's a plot against him. By the way, in case you're not familiar with this part, this is where he gets thrown to the lion's den. In verse number 10, now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, there's a law that says you cannot be praying. He went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. All right, so there is the integrity, but let me mention this. There's an integrity aspect of it here, but there's also an aspect of spiritual discipline. There ought to be a spiritual discipline about the way we conduct ourselves as believers. He continued to pray no matter what. Well, what if that was a really good excuse for him to be like, you know what, maybe I'll pray tomorrow. So you can get thrown into a lion's den if you pray. And he's like, nope, got to pray. It's time for that. But people at Chick-fil-A may see you bow your head before lunch. And you're like, well, maybe I'll just pray next time I eat a meal. All right, so the idea is it takes very little for us to give up our spiritual disciplines. Yeah. How often is a couple more minutes of sleep in the way of your Bible reading? How often is it that your pursuit of finding, Googling or Facebooking or whatever gets in the way of seeking God in regards to the needs that we have? Let me encourage you to make a valuable time of prayer and Bible reading every single day. Every single day. For him, it's 3 times a day. And these prayers, I doubt that was the only times he ever prayed. But spiritual discipline. And let me just mention one more. All right, we'll be done with this one. Never stop growing. Never stop growing. So Daniel, in what he's doing, Daniel is seeking. He is looking. He's been getting certain things. Go to chapter 8. He gets some prophecies in chapter 8 that are a little confusing. I understand that. Talking about the animals with kind of weirdly shaped animals and different horns and stuff like that. And he gets all this stuff in verse number 15. And it came to pass when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. So at this point, what we find is Daniel he's getting information from God, and he's wanting to know, what does this mean? What does this mean? Now, here's what gets me about Daniel. He's an old man at this point. All right, so he is in his 80s at this point. So he's receiving information, and in any ways, or at least he may be close to 80s. We know that the Medo-Persian Empire has come in now, and they're getting ready to send people out. So that puts him in his 80s. Now, the point is that when it comes to this, we're seeing some information about. I apologize. That was actually during the Belshazzar, so he's younger on this part. It takes place again in chapter number 9, so we can use the same thing there. So the point is that when it comes to this, he's getting information, whether earlier on, all the way through to his old age. There's points where he doesn't understand what's going on. There's one point he's by a river, he's far away, and he's like, what's happening? And he's told, you're just going to be confused about this stuff. And so he's getting information early on. We see this back in chapter 2. He's praying. He needs help interpreting the vision. See chapter number 8. He gets information again. He's like, I'm not sure what's going on. Years later, he's again getting more information. He's like, I still don't know what's going on. And here's what happens. He never gets to the point where it's like, I'll be fine without it. And there are areas in our Christianity we feel like we're good. We're good. I'm there. I don't need any more information. And anyways, don't ever be satisfied. Don't ever be satisfied with your growth where you're at. I've reached the top. Listen, this is a terrible summit for you to reach if this is it. If there's no place to grow from here, there's something wrong. I would ask you a question. When was the last time you grew? It's just a simple thing. Let me put it this way. What's the last big decision you made for the Lord? I don't mean that, you know what, I think I'm going to start making some slight changes here or there. I'm saying you made a big decision for the Lord, or are you just that good you don't need to make big decisions for the Lord anymore? Like, I'm good. I've been doing this for a long time. We say, well, we got the big ones out of the way. I stopped drinking, smoking, cussing, stopped doing all these things, stopped running around those people, and I'm good. Well, we get satisfied with these little things. Daniel is an old man. Even in chapter 9, when he's getting the prophecy of the years, he brings this confession to God, and he's still sensitive, which, by the way, is an important other point if you want to add a seventh one. But the idea is that he's continuing to grow, and there's no point where he stops growing. Don't let 2025 be a year where we stop. There's so much more to do, so much more to grow. All right, so that's a very, very small overview of the life of Daniel, several points in regards to success and what we're doing for him. I pray that you'd be helped by that. Let's go ahead and close in a word of prayer, and then we'll be done, all right? Father, we thank you so much for this evening and opportunity to look here at the life of Daniel. My God, I pray that we would take him and we would learn, we would grow. God, my desire is not that after years in ministry or years at this church or years simply as Baptists or our lives as believers, God, that we would be satisfied, but that we would continue to grow, not because it's 2025, Lord, because it's another day you've given us to honor you, to glorify you. Pray you would be glorified in all the things that we do and what we say, and that the way in which we serve you would be with diligence, sincerity, truth. Pray the truth of your gospel would continue to permeate the ways in which we live, Lord, that we would never get away from that we would be faithful, we would be consistent in how it is that we live for you. I pray that we'd be full of integrity, with an excellent spirit, we'd be purposed in our hearts. That, Father, I ask that you would help us as the church, Lord, not to make a name for ourselves in the things that we're able to do, but in the ways in which we submit ourselves to you. I pray for our church, Lord. It's a burden of mine that there be many more that come to a saving knowledge of your Son, many more baptized this year, maybe many more growing in nurture and admonition of the Lord, and that they would know you. They'd be, as a church, that we'd be doing our job of sharpening, edifying, presenting a church that's what it's supposed to be as we see you. So we thank you again for this evening. Look forward to what you'll do with what we've done tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, thank you for being here.